Hi, Ken Bates, back again with another episode of the VA Loan Officer Superstar Series. This is where I interview a loan officer focused on VA who's helping a lot of veterans, but he's also a role model for other loan officers and how you can grow your business. In today's episode, we're talking to Andrew Vierra. He does things different. He does not go to real estate agents. He goes to trade shows. That's right, trade shows, straight to the consumer. Now, of course, when you get the consumer deal first, you can then hand it to a real estate agent. So not only are we going to go deep on how he does that, but then what do you do once you get the lead? When do you give it to an agent? There's a whole discussion we have on that I think you're really going to like. Andrew also has a lot of little tips. Specifically, there's one tool that he says, hey, this is what I give borrowers so that if they are going to go shop around, they're interviewing the loan officers, not just asking about rate. Lots of information in this episode. I hope you like it. If you do, please subscribe. Hey, enjoy the interview.
Hello, welcome to the VA Superstar Series. I'm here today with Andrew Vierra, who's out of Northern California, has been in the industry for about 14 years. Is that about right, Andrew?
Yep, 2005.
Okay, so joined at the fun time. You started off very quickly, went from being a loan officer to looks like you got your own business up and running within a couple years.
Yeah, it was all about a branding thing. My previous career was in advertising for 18 years, and it was all about making sure I was able to manage my own brand. So that's why I went that route.
Okay. Started as a broker or banker, or what's been your role in those worlds?
At that time, we were brokers. We were under a company for 10 years that was brokering, and then in the downturn, they bought a bank, and then we became bankers, which is the platform I'm under now.
Okay. And you said we, so you had some partners in the beginning, or?
No, I had people working with me. So
okay.
I had a partner for a very short time, but that didn't work out, and so I've been on my own and with a team of people working with me for a lot of years.
I understand well. So now you have a VA focus. What brought you to the VA?
It's an interesting question. The first experience I had was a realtor early on in my career asked me if I could do a VA loan for somebody who had been through a bankruptcy. And all I knew at that point was that VA loans theoretically could get somebody into a home easier if they had something like that. And I honestly didn't have any clue what I was doing. And so I went to the wholesale rep and said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Please walk me through this. And she handed me a binder and said, here's all the answers that you need. So as far as hand-holding, there really was none of it. And we got the deal done, and I realized when I was through it that it was like anything else, that the fear was really more up front than it was once I got through it. And then realized in that there wasn't a lot of people out there that were focused on VA. Of course, it was during the time, it was 2000, that first one was probably 2006 or 7. So, you know, all the other loan products, nobody was looking at VA. And in the back of my mind, I thought, well, I'd like to try and learn this better and focus on it, but didn't do anything about it until I met on Loan Toolbox. They had the chat rooms or bulletin boards or whatever, and apparently I had responded to a comment somebody made one time, and the lady contacted me a year later out of Minnesota and said, hey, I just want you to know that because of your response, I kept your response for a year, and I'm now focused on VA loans. I do it almost exclusively. And we talked a little bit. I asked her what she was doing because I wanted to do it. And she said, well, why don't you come out? I'm going to be at the National Veteran Service Officers Conference in Minneapolis. Why don't you come out and see what I'm doing? Jumped on a plane in 2 weeks and was there and haven't looked back since.
That's pretty cool. Now, you're not a veteran yourself.
I am not. No, sir. My son is now 20. How old is he? He's 27. But that came much later that he actually went into the Army, and he's serving over in Japan as a Black Hawk pilot. But I had been doing VA loans for a good number of years before he ever joined the military.
So just stumbled into it.
Right.
That's pretty interesting. Now, that was 2006. How much of your business nowadays is VA?
Last year it ended up being about 76%. 2 years ago it was 85%.
Okay. And how much business a year are you doing?
As far as dollar volume?
Sure.
We're about 29 million, about 70 units a year at this point.
So 70 units a year and 3/4 of them. So it was 50-something families doing VA that you're helping every year.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's the only thing that I spend time and money promoting. That's it. I mean, that I've started to talk more about conventional again and some about FHA, because just to be a diversified person, and you don't want to turn away other clients, and there's opportunities that come up. It kind of stinks when you find out friends or family have gone someplace else because they think all you do is VA, which is why my percentages have dropped a little bit. But it is the only thing I spend money promoting.
Okay. Talk to me about that, because that's something a lot of us see is, and I espouse to my staff, hey, we're a steakhouse. We specialize in steak. It's what you're known for. It's all that type of stuff. But when somebody gets to a steakhouse, they can also get a damn good piece of fish and a damn good piece of chicken. So that's like the FHAs and the conventionals. So we've sort of had the same philosophy, and we've had it backfire in the same way. If people go, I thought you only did VA. So with your marketing background, you're still staying the course, though. Hey, you know what? I focus on all my marketing on VA, and the other stuff I just get when I can.
Yeah, and so my branching out right now to broaden out a little bit more is from the standpoint on Facebook. Every so often I will post something about that, hey, don't forget about me. I do other things. And, it's interesting because as we all know, in the real estate and lending world, people think that the VA loan is the hardest thing out there. And so my point to people is, if you wanted to learn how to play baseball and hit a baseball, and you decided that somebody was going to throw golf balls at you, and now you can hit a golf ball out of the park with a baseball bat, that being the VA loan, typically, people think it's the hardest loan. Well, now throw me a softball, which is a conventional loan, and see how well we do with it. And so I have a marketing piece now that talks about the fact that, if you want to get better in treatment and get the kind of customer service that they get, come to us for your conventional and whatever else that you're doing.
Neat. Now you mentioned Facebook there, so you're doing some marketing on Facebook. How much, how often, where, and how's it working?
It's nothing consistent. I'm not buying any ads on Facebook at this point. I had tried some a year ago at this time. We were doing some, but didn't get any traction with that. And not that I won't go back to it. It's just more so I will post things about VA loans. I'm trying to branch out right now into some of the Facebook groups and post things just about the VA benefit in general, or what I hear going on in the veteran world, because I'm pretty involved in things that go on here in Northern California. So I try and post things that would help anybody and don't necessarily have anything to do with the loan.
Sure.
So the Facebook thing is just an adjunct to the other ways I go out and get business.
What is your primary way to go get business?
Well, at this point, the last 4 years, so 4 years ago this month, I started doing trade shows. And, my thought process when I got into lending was that putting yourself in front of people is the best way to find opportunities. And if you're sitting behind your desk, you're not going to find as many opportunities. Not that you can't do it through social media and other ways, but for me, my background was always in outside sales. So I did my first trade show, which was a Sportsman's Exposition in Sacramento, and then started booking trade shows after that. And there are lenders who go out to trade shows and they'll have a booth there. But I decided that's what I was going to do. And last year, I think I did 22 different events around the state. This year, I've cut back some. I'm working on some other aspects, because when you're doing the trade shows, it's all weekend. And some of them I've driven. I'm in Northern California. I've driven all the way to San Diego. I've driven to Palm Springs. I've gotten on an airplane and gone places. And it's a great way to meet people and have a face-to-face, because anytime you're face-to-face, it's always going to be better than telephone or anything else. But there are people who come back a year later. I could meet them at a trade show and they could walk by and take a brochure, and a year later they're calling and saying, hey, we want to talk to Andrew. And we say, well, where did you find his information? Well, I was at some trade show. I don't know when it was, but or somebody else gave him a brochure or something.
Right. Now, it's a very different methodology, and it's pretty cool because you talk about you make the connection with the actual client, but it's in the middle of a trade show. Is there anything that you found that really is important that you talk to them about or you do to grab their attention? Because, from my personal experience, we once did a air show, and it was a good opportunity, but it seemed like most of the people that were there for an air show, not to walk by our booth and find out about VA loans. So what is it that you do to capture their attention? What is it you do that makes it so that it's memorable and they call you a year later? That's something that is something I'm sure has evolved over time for you.
It's a great question, and I'm always trying new things. I've tried different banners. Like the trade show, I have one starting tomorrow. And that one is an indoor show. So I have an indoor display and I have an outdoor display that's my tent. And the biggest challenge, honestly, is to get people to stop and just ask about their benefit. So the first thing is getting them to stop and ask the question. And I can tell you that there are lots of times that people will be walking by and they will talk to their friend and they will be saying something like, oh, I tried my VA loan, or somebody, I can hear what they're saying. And I will stop people and I say, look, give me 5 minutes. Let me ask you a couple questions. Tell me why you can't use your VA loan, or tell me why you think you can't, or tell me why it didn't work before. And I would bet 99 times out of 100, I show them why they're wrong and why somebody told them wrong, and then their face just lights up when I'm able to do it. So the biggest challenge is getting people to stop. And you can be at a trade show, and the sportsman's expositions are good because a lot of veterans like hunting and fishing.
Right.
When you go there, they wear their hat or their shirt or something that says that they're a veteran. But there's a lot of events you go to, and people are veterans, but they're not wearing a banner that tells you they're veterans. So really it's about having some signage that gets people to look. And if you're selling carpet or you're selling something else at a trade show, pretty much everybody who walks by, like this show this weekend is a home and landscape expo, and it's big. There'll be 30,000 people there. Well, other vendors are standing there trying to get every single person to talk to them. In my world, I can keep working, and I only have to pay attention to the person who pays attention to me. Because the person who's looking at me is looking at me because they know somebody who's a vet or they are a vet. That's the only reason. If you were to see my display, that's the only reason for them to look at me. And so then I try and engage them from there. If I hear them saying something, or they stop and ask, hey, I thought I heard that, yada, yada, yada. So I don't have it perfected, and I've done bunches of shows, and I'm still trying to perfect it.
So in a show of 30,000 people, how many are you actually talking to?
Ironically, less now than when I started 4 years ago. So talking to and people who sign up. So I have a sign-up sheet that if people really want more information, I ask them to put their information down so that we can reach out to them after the show. There are some shows that I don't talk to very many. So to give you a concrete example, that very first show I did, the Sportsman's Exposition, which was 4 days, we had 70 people sign up that first year. And I was over the moon. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to do all this? Even if there's 50% of these people, I'm doing the math.
Yeah.
It's the follow-up that's the big thing.
Okay.
But less and less people are paying attention now. So at this show, I judge it by signups. If I get 10 to 12 people to sign up for me to reach back out to them, that's a good show for a good turnout for the site. I'll talk to a lot more people, and there's people who will come by and grab a brochure and they keep going. So it's always, there's not an exact thing. I mean, I have some shows I may only get 5 people to sign up, and you go, okay, well, I need to get one of these out of this. And then you don't get anybody in the first 90 days, and you go, okay, well, that one was a bust. And then 2 people pop up a year later and go, hey, we met you at whatever.
Yeah. Do you have a feel for conversion ratios of, signups typically is a, 1 in 3 I can do a loan for? Or?
I wish I did, and I don't. I've tried to quantify it. I can tell you that there's things that I did wrong at the beginning. You really want to have a drip campaign that you can drop people into, which my deal was I was testing for the first 2 years. I was doing as many shows as I could to talk to as many people as I could, dump as many people through the top of the funnel, and we would squeeze out the other end. And it wasn't the most efficient way to do it, but it was a new platform, and I just needed volumes of people to talk to. So, you know, I wish I could say how. I'm going to say maybe 20%.
Okay.
Of people that sign up actually turn into a loan within a year.
Now you talked about that.
If somebody were doing it more efficiently than I did, right? If I were to coach somebody up front, the things I've already made the mistakes on, like, okay, these things would make the whole thing a lot better when you're starting off.
Right. Because it sounds like you tried to jam as much into the top of the funnel as possible, but you didn't really have a middle of funnel other than brute force phone calling.
Correct.
Okay. We've all been there.
And really, it's the follow-up immediately after. I mean, so I tell people, hey, I'm going to put you in a drip email campaign. There's some veteran benefits things there for you and some stuff that explains about the loan process at any time. If you don't want those, you can unsubscribe. It's not a big deal. We're not going to keep spamming you. And you really want to be calling them the day after the show's over and get on the phone, at least leave them a voicemail.
So you stand a show. It might be a 2-day, 3-day weekend, probably 10, 12-hour days. I assume these are, the type of shows that at the end of your legs are just sore. And then you go, I can't travel home. I can't do this. I have to call all those leads immediately.
Yeah, and and I'm not that, honestly, I'm not that as efficient at that as I should be either. I get back, I let people know that they're going to hear from either me or somebody on my team. And I tell them how our team works, that once I start the process that they talk with Kim and they talk with Cindy and how everything works, so that they're not going to be, scared off by the fact that, hey, I'm not talking to Andrew. But I also tell them, if you don't hear from me or you're talking with a member of my team and you want to talk to me at any time, I'm right there. All you got to do is tell them, hey, I want to talk with Andrew. I talked with him before.
Right.
So it really, I mean, I block out the first day after a show and say I'm going to be making my phone calls and sending my emails or whatever I'm going to do and make sure I get those out, and then maybe take a day off on the Tuesday instead of on the Monday.
Okay. That was one of the things I was going to ask is if you're doing 20-ish weekends a year, because I assume most of these events we're talking weekends, right?
Yes, most of them. Yep.
So then you go do a normal loan officer Monday through Friday 9 to 5 thing. How have you figured out life balance to get yourself mentally caught up and go have a relationship with your family and everything else?
Yeah, so that's been challenging, which is one of the reasons why I'm cutting back some on how much I'm doing this year that are going to be weekend events, because it is a lot. And I mean, there are trade show people that that's what they do. They're always gone. But I felt like I needed to do this to really test it and learn and see what's out there. So, I try and take a day off here or there and plan off other vacations. Some of these events aren't away from home, though. The ones that are away from home where I'm staying in a hotel, that's tough. I did one time where I was gone for 7 days. Traveled all the way down to Southern California. It was a 5-day event in Long Beach, and then I drove home. So that was the toughest one. And because of where I am in Northern California around Sacramento, there are a lot of events that are here that I'm home at night. So it's kind of like, a realtor who does, if they're doing 2 open houses on Saturday and 2 on Sunday because that's what they're doing, but they're home at night.
Right.
Kind of like that. So I'm going to be a much more closer to home now on the events that I do.
That's from your perspective, because obviously realtors are the classic referral partner for loan officers, and you're doing it a little different. What would you say are the advantages of your methodology, and what would you say are the disadvantages?
So the advantage is that we're going consumer direct. And I think for any loan officer who's been doing this for any amount of time, I think when we're controlling the transaction, it's easier on us and on our staff. So refinance, we control everything. And if we meet the person first, right, before they get to a realtor, If they have their own realtor, we still don't have to worry about anything. And if they don't, we're able to hand off a warm lead to the realtor. And of course, that's what a lot of us hope that we would have, because it endears us and hopefully we get business from that. So that's the big pro to it. The con is the how intense it is on your time, and the preparation and the setup. Yesterday I was gone for 3 hours yesterday setting up at the show, and now today I'm home, and then tomorrow I start halfway through the day, and it'll be the whole weekend. So that's really the downside of it. For me, I like being face to face and pressing flesh with people. That is my comfort zone, and I feel like I do talks as you do in front of people, and I think the engaging part is really the customer engagement, and the face to face helps feed me. And if you're not being fed by what you're doing, if it's just robotic, then it's not a heck of a lot of fun.
And then you feed these leads to the agent. At what point do you feed the leads to the agent? When you first get it, or after you have it pre-approved, or?
We wait till we know that they're approved. Okay. There's sometimes where somebody wants to go looking, but no, I mean, just like us, we don't want to get somebody who's not there. So I try and wait till I know somebody's approved. I'm itching to give it, because in my mind, sometimes I know who I'm going to give it to, because their personality is going to match or whatever. So I want to wait till it's approved, because that's what I would want if I were on the receiving end.
Okay. We had done the same thing, and then somebody pointed out to me recently. They said, yeah, we give the leads away right away and have the agent start working them as well. And it was one of those moments that we looked at and went, why wouldn't we do that? Because we had always been of the mindset of, hey, the agents send us leads and we work a lot of not good ones. So I want to send back stuff that's good. And in the reality, it's like, well, wait a second. I could send back stuff to the agent and have them co-work it with us. The thing that occurred to me the most was this idea that I've always had, which is clients don't want mortgages. Clients want houses. So agents have the product the client wants. We have the necessary evil. So I have always been like you of, hey, we don't give leads back to agents until they're pre-approved and gold-plated. I think I'm going to try and change that to just go, let me just give the leads to the agents too, and let them start teasing them with pretty pictures instead of me sending them spreadsheets, because they don't want spreadsheets. They want kitchens and garages. They don't want, APRs. So it's just something that I haven't tried either, but it was something that somebody recently brought up to me, and I went, maybe I should try that. So just a thought for you.
Yeah, and you know what, Ken? That's an interesting point, and I feel like I'm a student of everybody. I'm an open book. You and I have known each other for a long, long time. I always want to share everything I know, and I don't feel like I'm ever perfect. There's a lot of times people say, oh, Andrew's the VA loan expert, and the first thing I say is, oh, heck no, because all I got to do is talk to people like you and other people who've been doing it longer than me, and I find out, okay, I'm a specialist, and I'm always learning, and I'm always looking for opportunities for people to ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, so that I can go learn something new.
Yep.
So, everybody's trying different things, and so even that whole interaction, that example you gave me, that's, I'm probably going to try that now.
That's why we do this, and I really appreciate you coming on, so you could be a mentor for others who maybe are on step one, or maybe they're been in the business for 20 years too, and we're all learning from each other, because there's lots of business out there.
Yeah.
But back to business, with VA in particular, obviously being a VA specialist, you probably get some what I call cast-offs. The agent calls and says, well, the client was pre-approved with so-and-so, and now the deal's dead. Can you save it? What do you see other loan officers messing up the most with on VA? Well,
I think a lot of people make assumptions of what they know about VA and what they have heard, and what, a lot of times even underwriters they think like FHA financing. And so, I think that's where people make the mistake, and they will, like a loan officer could be doing his first VA loan or her first VA loan. Maybe they've done 5 in their whole career. And in their mind, they go, well, what's the minimum FICO for VA? And they throw it out there to them. They say, well, the VA minimum FICO is this. And now the veteran walks away and goes, okay, VA has a minimum FICO score. That's just one example. And you and I both know there is no, VA doesn't have a FICO score requirement. It's the lenders. And so I think it's the assumptions that people make. It could be about the loan limits. It could be about credit scores. It could be about the appraisal process, any of it. And people do something off the top of their head without going back and going, you know what? I think I know. Let me go verify before I tell you something I don't know. And for a loan officer, I think the biggest thing that you can do is be cognizant in your own mind, and be aware, make yourself aware of what you really don't know. And if you are on the receiving end of information, think of it like your doctor. If your doctor in their mind is going, yeah, I really don't know this, but I'm going to tell you, hey, go get, this specific test done, right? And they really don't know, how comfortable are you going to be when you find out later, yeah, they didn't really need that.
Right.
I mean, to your point of we literally just closed somebody last week that he had gone to another lender who apparently had been helping him repair his credit. And when he did what he was told to do, the lender came back and said, well, no, your credit scores still aren't where they need to be. And this gentleman got frustrated and said, I'm so mad. So he Googled and he found me, and he happened to be here near me. And when he told me his story, I said, no, we can do that. Literally within 20 days from him contacting me, we had him closed.
Nice.
It was one of those things where this was a FICO thing. At the end of the day, all we had to do was not have his wife on the loan because his credit score was where it needed to be, but hers wasn't. So, that's an inexperienced loan officer thing, I think, or you hear in VA, oh, well, it's a community property state, California, so, both people have to, whatever they heard, I don't know.
Right.
But at least he kept looking. I give the veteran credit that he kept looking and going, well, I'm not going to take the first answer that I got. Because most people, my mantra to everybody, to every veteran out there, and I will tell the story to civilians who know veterans or whatever, is don't assume, don't self-diagnose, just ask somebody who knows what they're doing. As long as people will ask the question about using their benefit, and don't just take the first answer you get if the answer is no. Just keep asking.
Yep. Yeah, we had a veteran who was pre-approved with a major bank that has specialized in VA, one of those ones that people sign up with when they join them in boot camp, one of those really, really big banks. He was stationed here in San Diego, buying a house, fiance. She was not on the loan. She was not a veteran or anything else. And ultimately, the bank came to him once he was in contract and said, hey, you're going to Georgia for supply officer school. This isn't going to be your primary residence. We can't do your loan. But if you got married to your fiance, then she could occupy the property and we could do your loan. They told him this on a Thursday. So what did they do on Friday? They went to this justice of the peace and got married. What did the bank do on Monday? Pulled her credit. She had a bankruptcy 18 months ago. So they didn't pull her credit before telling him to do a life event like getting married. So now they go, okay, she can occupy, but she can't be on the loan. But you're in a community property state, so her car payment is now going to count against you. So now you could be on the loan by yourself. Your wife can occupy, but you don't qualify because now you have too much debt once we count her debt. So they were denying the loan. That
just hurts to hear that story. That's awful.
And this is a major, major bank that focuses on veterans. And ultimately, it was one of those ones that, fortunately, the cause of her bankruptcy was one of those unique ones that we could do the deal for the 1 to 2 year caveat on bankruptcy. And we did get it closed and we saved it. And they were going to get married anyway. So in the grand scheme of life, it all worked out well.
Yeah.
But there was a period of time there where they weren't getting any sleep and probably were having trouble keeping food down because it was one of those, what have we done?
Right.
Because somebody suggested they should get divorced or nullify the marriage. And it's just like, this is not a way to start, your future.
Yeah, no, that's tough. The big companies like that, and they have a lot of money and they have deep pockets and they're generating leads for people who are sitting behind a phone. And I tell my clients is the hard part is your experience is only as good as the loan officer that is there. and whether they know what they're doing. And just because they have a big, well-known name behind them doesn't mean that the loan officer knows what they're doing. And I'll give them the example. I'm not going to use a brand. I say, well, you could call this bank and say, do you do VA loans? And they're going to say, well, yes, we do. And they said, well, let us introduce you to a loan officer. And you walk over to the loan officer, and they sit them down with the loan officer, and their mind is going, holy moly, I have no idea what I'm doing. They're not going to tell the person, right? And now they're going to stumble through it and try and figure it out, which it's better than the veteran being told, no, we can't do the loan. But for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't seek help to get it done, now the veteran has a poor experience with their VA loan. They get done with it, and now they tell all of their friends that the VA loan process is horrible and don't ever use it.
Yep.
It's a tough, tough thing.
That's some interesting language on how you deflect that question of why should you use me instead of somebody else. It's like that's because that other person is an individual, and you're working with an individual, and it's how good are they, not how, what's the brand that's behind them.
Well, I create, because of that, and some of this stuff goes back to my marketing background and understanding the psychology and how people think and what have you, but I created what I call the proficient loan officer test. And so when I'm doing my presentations, I have a slide that goes through 2 or 3 different things, but I give people a couple of questions that they can ask the loan officer. And one of the simple ones is, what is my funding fee if I don't put any money down? And I tell them, if they say, hang on, let me look that up, they don't do VA loans very often. They're not going to be very proficient. I give them 3 different levels of questions that they can ask. Because, right, how do you know? First of all, how do they know I know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
People have just met me. I know that once we have a conversation for a little bit, they're going to know, because they're now telling me, okay, wow, you've told me things about this loan that I had no clue about before. And people told me no and whatever. But for the consumer, for the average everyday person, how do they know that the person knows? They know a brand, and people do business with people they like, know, and trust, and brands they like, know, and trust. And a lot of times it's just brands they know.
Yep.
And they just trust them that way. So it's all about the people behind the phone.
Now, in terms of brand you trust and what people will now call social proof, have you pursued social proof in terms of, reviews or endorsements or any of that type of stuff that you can give to a client that says, here's why you should work with me?
Well, we have lots of reviews online, and on my signature, I have, it'll takes people right to the page that'll come up with all of the different reviews. We have a lot of positive reviews there, and we take those and we put them on our website. And somebody said to me the other day, and I agree 100%, nobody's ever going to post a bad review on their website, so send somebody to your website, right? For the person who critically thinks through it. I don't do that as well as I could. I do have a lot of people that I can, if somebody wants references, I have an email out right now to a real estate office, to their manager. And I have lots of people who are references on there that they can call, who will vouch for, me and what I do, and that I really do know what the heck I'm talking about.
So you actually have a sheet with, call these 5 people to, ask them about me.
I haven't done that, but that's something that I should do. I'm guessing that you do that, so if Kim does it, I should do it.
I have not, and it's one of those things that I don't know if it's more valuable to do it, to just have it, or if people would actually call, because just giving it to somebody says, 90% of the message of call people. Yeah. I'm not confident in what you're going to find out. If you're willing to stick your neck out like that, it says, you know what, I got people on the other end that are willing to take these calls, because obviously you want their permission. But it's hey, if you gave me that sheet, I would just look at it and go, I don't need to actually call him. Just the fact that you gave me the sheet says that this guy's got his stuff wired.
And it's funny because I have my email template for when I'm going to do speaking stuff, and the people who are on there, they carry a lot of credibility, and so I probably will do that too from this conversation, because especially when I'm at the trade shows, it's just one more proof for somebody.
Yeah, because it's starting as a cold relationship. You gotta put the energy into it of I'm credible, and you should work with me pretty damn quick.
I hope.
Now, with veterans themselves, obviously you talked about getting a second opinion and everything else. Is there a piece of advice you would have for them of, hey, here's something that you should consider about your VA loan benefit that you maybe haven't?
For the veteran, I think my biggest piece for the veteran is ask, and it doesn't matter what type of loan that you want, as long as it's, and I try and I know there's caveats to what I'm about to say, but I tell people, if you're looking for a loan, any loan on a home that you are going to live in as your primary residence, you need to at least ask about the VA loan and see what your options are. And that's really my mantra that I try and spread to everybody. I did a talk for our Rotary Club one time. They asked 4 of us to get up and do 10 minutes on what we do. And my first thought was, we have 10 veterans in our group of 60, so this is going to be kind of boring for people, I'm thinking. And so I decided, okay, how many people, what I said is raise your hand if you're a veteran. And we had our 12 veterans raise their hand. I said, now everybody raise their hand that knows somebody who served in the military. And now everybody did. And so then I said, well, let me tell you how this thing works so that you can pass on and, evangelize about this and help people that you know that think something different of it. So it's really just exposing people to the idea to ask.
Yep, little by little, getting the word out there that this is just an amazing product.
It is the most amazing thing, and there are times that I have been brought to tears, and I know that sounds weird, but when I talk about, and people ask me like what we're talking about, why I do VA loans, and it can be a tough thing when you find out somebody else did something with somebody else, like if it's a conventional loan or something. But I'm telling you, when you show somebody that they can do something that they thought they couldn't, and they get into a house or on a refinance, my biggest success story was a Navy veteran who came to me. We were talking about marketing, and she said to me, I went to another bank, I won't name them, and I needed to get cash because I needed to pay off this debt. And at the end of the day, I convinced her, I said, look, I'm pretty sure I can do this loan for you. This woman had lost her job in the downturn, and her husband had lost his job, and she was trying to start a business, and they were close to filing bankruptcy. And I said, I need you to do me one thing. I won't know anything until I get the appraisal. The appraisal is going to tell me everything on what I can do for you. So your investment in this is the cost of an appraisal, and I need you to promise me that you will get at least that far so I can tell you. Because at the end of the day, you're either going to file bankruptcy or you're going to spend this money now. She tried to quit on it, and I made her keep her promise. By the time we were done, and when she wanted to stop me, she decided she was going to sell the house. And I said, you promised me. By the time we were done, she had stayed in her house, kept her 10-year-old daughter there with her husband, and saved $3,500 a month in cash flow. That's how much they had gotten themselves in trouble with all this in the downturn. Now, that debt didn't go away, but it was $200-some thousand in cash flow over 5 years that would allow them to stay where they are and try and figure out how to get themselves right-sided. We couldn't have done that with any other loan out there because of the loan to value we were able to do.
Right. And that client is she's good at referring you people, or she's amazing at referring you people?
Pretty darn good. Yep. Pretty darn good.
Yep.
It's one of those stories. I mean, all of us have our stories of what our biggest success stories are. But I mean, we on the refinance side of things that we've been able to do for people, especially on the debt restructuring for people to give them some headroom. I mean, $1,700 a month, $2,000 a month, $700 a month, and then we show them how not to pay for that debt over 30 years and how to add some of that principal back to pay off that portion of the debt early. And we go through all those things with people because we're not an advocate of doing a loan just for the sake of doing a loan and putting somebody in a position where they're just going to go out and do it to themselves again. We want to give them the tools, the financial tools to help themselves and use this benefit to help them get right-sided.
Sweet. So to wrap up here, is there any other advice you would give to, young Andrew if you were, back in 2004 and 5, just starting of, here's what I would recommend you should do if you're going to focus on VA?
There's a couple things. I think one thing I would do that I found out later doing a VA is go to the VA lender conference. It happens every year. And until you go there, and I encourage underwriters to go. I took my underwriter there one time at my very first one, and I think that's where you and I met,
Yep.
close in there, is you get to this lender conference and you find out the attitude of the personnel at VA is so different. And I always call it, it's tie goes to the runner, except this is tie goes to the veteran. And instead of looking for reasons not to do this, it's a benefit for the veteran, so they're looking for reasons to do this. And it's the most broad guidelines ever. And immerse yourself in what is VA. Read, especially Chapter 4. Get through that. And even when you read it, your brain is going to go back to FHA or something else. But always be asking the question, and don't be cognizant, like I said before, of what you think you know. And if you have a doubt, research the doubt and find out from somebody who really knows what they're talking about. And you don't have to know everything. The other piece that I will say is, we don't ask people, and I encourage realtors to ask people, don't ask somebody if they're a veteran, because a lot of veterans don't identify as a veteran for a lot of different reasons. And they have their own reasons why they might say no. But if you ask somebody if they have military experience, and my encouragement is, I tell the realtor, people sit down with you, say, do either of you have military experience? And when they say, well, why, yes, my wife does. Did you know that you can use your VA home loan benefit to buy this house? And 8 times out of 10, they're going to say, no, I can't because. And as soon as they say, no, I can't because, you just tell them, I'm pretty sure that you can. Let me have you talk to somebody. Hand them my card. Let me have you talk to somebody and answer questions, because the answer is going to be no if you don't ask. So those subtle little things, immerse yourself, ask a lot of questions, and don't be afraid of what you don't know. Because as long as you've been doing this and you served in the military, things come up all the time. I've never served in the military, and I'm studying and learning all the time. We're never going to have all the answers. We're just there to serve, and as long as you tell your client, I don't have the answer, but I'm here to make this work for you. If there's any way that it can happen, I can make it happen for you. And exude the confidence that you're going to help them.
It's pretty cool. Let me just echo with the Chapter 4 comment. I'm a fan of reading that, and also reading it with the eye towards what doesn't it say, because there are plenty of times that Chapter 4 says something about, hey, generally this is not acceptable, which I read that sentence backwards, and it says, under rare circumstances, this is acceptable, because generally it says, most of the time, but that, hey. So then that's where you start digging and going, well, am I in one of those rare circumstances? Is there anything else there in the VA guideline, not in our lender overlays, but in the VA guideline that says specifically, here are the times when maybe you can get away with it. And sometimes it doesn't say anything. Sometimes, hey, self-employment income under 1 year is generally not acceptable. It's really hard. But other times it does say, well, here are some of the times that it does work. And when you know those, now you're equipped to go have a discussion, not a battle, because if you start battling with underwriters, you might win the war or win the battle and lose the war. But that opportunity to just go, hey, can we go see if this is going to be something we can get done? Because I think this is the outside the generally. I think this is the rare circumstances where, as Dumb and Dumber would say, so you're saying I got a chance.
Well, right. And you know what? As we're having this conversation, I'm thinking the word generally, just think opportunity. Right? And it wasn't until somebody pointed out the general, it's like, oh, because the human mind reads things a certain way, and you skip over words and you don't see what's there. And I'll tell you the other thing that I would say that I just thought of is call your regional loan center when you have a question. Don't wait for the underwriter to call, because guess what? You can explain the situation, and then they can feed you something back, give you the opportunity, they can put it in writing, and now you can send it to the underwriter. Now the underwriter has cover, and the underwriter might go, oh my goodness, I just learned something new I didn't know before. Because guess what? Underwriters are just like us. They make assumptions, they work in FHA all day or conventional or everything else, and nobody can know everything all the time. You just have to use the resources around us.
Nope, they can't. All right, well, I appreciate you being on today and giving us your time and sharing your insights. I mean, going out to trade shows, that's definitely something that's very different from the norm and pretty cool. And obviously it's been successful. helping 50 plus veteran families every year, that's making a difference in the world, and that's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah. Well, happy to be here. Happy to be asked. If people have questions, if people want to shoot me an email or what have you, however you're putting this out there, I'm always happy to help. I help realtors, even if I'm not doing the deal. It's an opportunity to learn. Loan officers call me and then apologize for asking me a question. It's an opportunity to learn. So I certainly, and when I don't know something, if I call the RLC or I say, you call the RLC, Regional Loan Center, and get back to me, let me know what you find out. We're all learning together. So tremendous loan. I can't say enough about it.
All right. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, Ken. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
All right, Andrew.
Hey, I hope you got a lot out of that episode. If you did, please comment down below or subscribe so you can see our future episodes that are coming out. We also have a VA Fact or Fiction. You'll see those as well. If you have any questions, please reach out. We're happy to help. The information's on the screen. I'll see you at the next episode.